Hello, YouTube. There's no winchy, go for it. What's up, guys? Lucha Bama Terrorists. We've got Danny here, Brandon, his wife. Hello! And we're here on the HD Extreme headquarters. We're fixing to do a little build on the transmission. We're gonna put a gear reduction here with Brandon. We're gonna show you this in a minute. There's the gears. There's the plate. Pinion plate. Thank you. And yep, we're in the HD Extreme headquarters. Look at all those diff. The diff guy, transmission guy, Brandon Ho, you got it. And we're gonna be with you here showing you in a second how to pull this transmission apart. If you want to do it good, if not, just ship it to Brandon. He will do it for you. He knows this transmission's in and out, inside out. I mean, he already told me a few problems I have on the money. We get so
this dude right here is really kind of the pain to get off. Once you pop that off, it's 13 millimeter, but it's the prying it off that it's a real soft aluminum. But
you cannot push nothing
get
behind
in there and just you gotta
okay.
work it in and out, just gotta kind of be patient with it. You see that shaft kind of moved a little bit. You pry a little bit against the case there. Kind of work from one side to the next.
Oh, I see it coming. Yep.
You'll bend this a little bit just because it's so soft in the back. But that's also going to help you remember
which way it goes.
Which way it goes back up.
Because yep, that makes sense. Start to move now. A lot better. Now you have to pull this out for this to be able to move the way.
Because all this is going to be interconnected inside. So once you get this off, you're going to pull your sensor off, all that good stuff. If you pry on this too hard, you know, because you can see how soft it is.
Yep.
You can actually bend this, and that's going to cause you some problems down the road.
It's got a notch in there. I see now. That's how you know how it goes back on the rough places.
There's when you put this back on, you're going to have one set of tooth there.
But it's bigger than the other
one. That's a double tooth.
So you know you're on park and everything, and you don't mess it up.
Yeah, and you're going to know you're in park on the inside too, because that's important when you're putting them back together.
Oh,
and I'll show you
see,
right here,
listen to that, guys, on park. Oh, it's coming. I see it coming a lot. Perfect.
Set. Let this go.
Okay.
Pop this back.
Sear clip. Pop clip.
You got a spring washer here.
And
your big washer. A lot of times if they've been in a lot of mud or water,
yep, probably this one is.
That'll get stuck right there. You gotta be patient with that. Just spray it if you need
Yep.
to.
Spray some looby.
So when I go
so
back
easy.
together with these, you know, we clean all these up
Mhm.
real nice, and then we put the same grease technique I was
Right.
talking about. We put it in there. If you ever have to pull it back apart again
Mhm.
for whatever reason,
Shouldn't,
it should slide
shouldn't.
right on the plate.
unless it breaks off. Goes in and out, don't worry. 10 mil, the famous 10 mil.
Mm-hmm.
The
The
one
one that's
disappears.
always missing.
There you go. Disappears all the time. So, for you guys to know, I don't know if I said something about it. This is a 12% high-low. Well, it's a 12% overall and 24% on low.
Correct.
But it's gonna be kind of, you know, I want to have a little higher speed on low. We can go higher and just don't have enough speed on low. But I just want to have the little hill kill, more speed. With a turbo, you don't need that much of more gear reduction. We're not a 4-seater. We're not running 35s yet, but I think this should be good for 35s. And, you know, it should turn the side by side a lot easier than it is right now.
But what you end up finding is when you go to a bigger tire and a turbo, you end up hitting boost before you actually start getting into the slow crawl. So
Correct.
you go from a crawl to a tire spin
Yes.
without being able to crawl it.
And that's my problem now. Yes.
You got it?
Yep. There we go. We got more?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. So now it's coming the tricky part to open this. I imagine you can pry from here on the corner and right on this side here. Let me hold the camera and probably here. You got like a little hole in there. Probably you can pry a little bit from here.
Yeah.
That
You're gonna have a
corner
spot
there,
here, spot here,
and one
there's
there.
a spot here.
So
the bigger the blunt item, like you don't want a real sharp.
no, you don't want a screwdriver.
Typically
Probably
they
like
pop up
Lady
pretty nice.
Crowbar. Look at this. I mean, it came out like nothing.
Sometimes they're a little rougher than others, but
Yep.
most of the time, if you get something kind of big in there,
The
it'll pop right on.
Lady Crowbar looks great for it.
So once you get that up, it'll start coming.
There it is. I hold the base. Look at that. Now we're looking at the gears I destroyed for 1,200 miles. Hey, we're missing the chain. Oh, that's right.
Shut up.
I don't have a chain.
Shut up.
That goes for Danny.
Precious don't need but a few.
Precious don't need no gears. Just good with chain.
Chain.
We'll end up cleaning all this off
Yes.
after we get everything out. But basically, so where we're gonna do our gear reduction is right here. We were talking about the low gear.
Okay.
You're gonna get your low gear here. So we'll swap this gear out
So let's
And
go
this
and see
gear out.
this.
off of your
These
primary.
two gears backwards is gonna go like this in here.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Now
then we're gonna change this shaft out.
the shaft
to
completely
give
out for
you
this
the
one
12% gear reduction in behind this. So that's
because
going
this
to
has got
affect
more teeth or less teeth than
that one's actually going to have less teeth
less teeth.
with the bigger gear here.
Bigger gear here. Okay,
Yep.
correct.
So
That's
you're
your overall,
Mhm.
and this is low gear.
your low gear, and then this one's going to affect your low gear again,
And
and it's going to affect. So the 12% here is going to affect your low gear, your reverse, and your high gear.
correct. So this is a full gear reduction all over town here. We got full 12 on everything, 24 on the other one. It's gonna be perfect.
Yep. Or we could even do some gear reduction here, which is what you're gonna be your stage 3.
Stage 3.
So it's what I was telling you earlier. You got your, basically, if you think about it like a stage 1, 2, and 3, your input, your secondary, your intermediate, and then your pinion shaft.
Okay, that's the intermediate.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting to come from a car transmission to a racer. This is, you know,
It's
impressive.
just gonna pull right out of there.
Okay.
No problem. Then you're gonna have, this has got a detent that drops into, so a lot of times you can just kind of pick it up
Okay.
and just slide it out.
Perfect. And that's your shifter
Yep.
mechanism.
That's
Probably
your
goes
shift
from
forks.
your shift forks under here. That's a shift fork. Move this 2 in here, 1 here and 1 down there.
So with your detent here, you know, your shift forks sit in there a certain way, and as it moves across, it's going to hold one up or let one drop down, and so on and so forth.
Correct.
You know? And that's going to pull one up, put one in gear, put the other, you know,
So,
keeps one gear from rolling,
correct.
or lets one free spin, I should say,
Mhm.
because it's going to let that one free spin, or it's going to lock it in.
Yep.
'Cause otherwise, if you lock both of them in, it's going to try to do high
And low at the same time. And there's going to be some binding big time in there.
And you'll
All
break even more stuff.
Yes.
Reverse gear,
Reverse gear.
Danny doesn't have that.
Oh, you don't have that, Danny.
Would
You're
call
missing
that
a chain there.
Would you call that a super single?
Super single.
Precious don't need one.
So,
All this is just going to slide out. All these bearings are all slip fit.
okay. So the shaft's going to come out.
Yeah, they all just kind of, you kind of got to wiggle them around.
Yep.
Sometimes
Like
get a little bit of
this
a
stuff
bind.
here, you have to play, wiggle, and play
Do
with
not
it.
force it.
Don't
Just-
force it. Nothing with force
don't make a
come
mess on
nice.
the table
Don't mess a
like
mess on the
this
table
guy.
like this guy. Leave all the fluid in there, even though I twist it and turn it. And I said I drain it.
Well,
Sorry, Brandon.
so your pinion area, or your output shaft area, it's going to hold a lot of fluid.
Yes.
Okay. Even after you drain it,
Right.
it's just going to.
And I drain it, twist it,
It's
move
just
it
like a
up and
diff.
down. Yep. It's gonna
They
steal
hold
out.
it all up in the pinion areas a lot of times. So
Right.
you know, people ship them in. They swore they drained them, and
Yep.
and they do. I know they do, but
There's not.
they'll leak out. So when people ship them to us, we actually have them seal up the vent tube line.
And everything.
In shipping,
Correct.
they don't.
But yeah,
you know.
but the way the bent tooth line is a pain
Yeah.
in the
yeah.
butt. It did it to me.
But we'll
So
pop this out here. Maybe get our drain bucket over here.
where's your drain bucket? Hold on. Just gonna jump this here. Make sure the cover's not on. And there. Perfect. Look at the purple fluid, guys. Purple fluid. Purple the purple. Purple fluid.
That's what we need to be.
Yep.
What's
that, guys? We got here Danny talking always. Yeah, Brandon pointed something out here. Guys, you know, when you're riding down the trail, like always happened to me, you hear Adam saying, hey, put it on gear. And, you know, you grind your gears. This is the little notches, and I'm going to go really close. When this catches in there, that's your gear grinding. These 3 little notches here. Or what you call it, you know, this is where it pulls the gear to move. That's the engaging and the disengaging here. But yeah, 1,200 miles is seen a lot. You see the little shiny spot in there. Let me shine my flashlight because I want to get a good view of this. Yeah, it's got a boo-boo there. Now, since Brandon know what he's doing, and he's gonna help me in this, the new gear on the gear reduction we're doing, it's got brand new. What you call those, Brandon?
That's where your engagement is.
The engagement,
So that's what's going to hold you in gear. Is that
Right.
there.
and you see here when you grind, and most of the times you don't gonna grind high gear because high gear don't Well, you can grind it, but low gear is what we run most of the times, and you see they pretty beat up.
Turbos have an issue when they have enough power that a lot of times, even though it's a flat spot right there, they will actually jump that gear in high gear a lot. It's basically going to hop up off of it. Because
Correct.
You got to keep in mind the piece that holds that down is still spring loaded.
Right.
So
it
if
still
it gets in
can
enough
move.
of a bind, it can still jump it.
Right.
But the vast majority of times, you're not going to have too much of an issue as long as you make sure it's actually fully locked into a gear
Yeah.
before you take off.
Right. That's now what I do now, and I learned this. If it goes to, if I put it on low and it starts to grind, I throw it back in neutral as quick as I can. But yeah, good luck with changing these 2 gears, and it's gonna change those little tips. What you call it? This ridges, the little ridges or the little tips to engage on gear on the colors. Those are colors, correct? Color, yeah, the colors.
Shift engagement color.
Shift engagement color. That's the right word. Now we're gonna call Danny here to get us again. He's talking, running his mouth there. Hello, Danny.
Sorry.
You wanna hold the camera up?
Damn turbo.
Damn turbo. Where's the? Oh, we don't have a chain here. That's right.
You don't need a chain.
Don't need it.
Precious runs on water.
Like we
Water.
were saying, all these are just slit fit, so sometimes you just kind of got to wiggle on them a little bit.
Wiggle, wiggle.
And they'll start coming out. You know, it'll feel like they're locked in there.
Look at that.
Look at there. Turbo come on out. If you're dealing with an XP setup that does have a chain,
All 3 come the same.
these two are going to come out
Together.
together. Because the
This-
chain is going to be running right here.
Okay, well, we're looking at the shaft comes out to the secondary, and we're
So-
looking at the
Yep.
secondary
That'll be-
shaft.
That'll be
Yeah.
your input shaft, which is where your secondary
Correct.
clutch is going to be.
Correct.
So on
So
a turbo
on a
unit,
turbo,
pretty simple. This will come out on its own, and then all these can come out. So
so
when you get it like that, you can end up rolling it like this,
then you are actually more flat now. You can work better.
and you can kind of have to work these two up
Oh,
together.
look at that. You see, it came out real easy.
And you're good to go. So what we're going to end up doing, we're going to change this whole shaft out. So we're going to press these bearings off. We're going to pull these collars, clips, so on and so forth, and change all of these gears out back to the new shaft. Change your low gear out, get rid of that other problem you had, plus give you your gear reduction. We're going to give you a gear reduction here, put another gear here to change. You get the gear reduction there. I'm good to go.
Yep. That's it. That looks pretty good. Pretty interesting. So, do we want to take this
No.
apart? Yeah, we're going to take
Yeah,
this
you can
apart
go.
first.
We can go ahead and take this
Okay,
out of
we're
there.
going to learn how to take this apart.
When typically we're also gonna change this out too with
Yeah,
one of our
pinion bearing.
HD
Yeah.
bearing plates.
Well, you cannot see it yet. I'm going to show you this in a minute. We're going to put this side to side, and the thickness on this is just insane compared to this little, piece of,
Yep.
Paper metal there. You can almost bend it with the little pliers.
And the other thing, there's a lot of these out on the market right now. Some guys have some really good ones, and some not so much. But what you got to pay attention to is thick is not always better. It is to some extent. You always got material, but you've also got the thickness of the metal versus how long of a bolt you can actually acquire.
Correct.
So when you're talking about steel going into aluminum, you only have so many threads to deal
Yes.
with. You put a real thick bolt or a real thick plate on there, and it looks like a phone book. and
Yes.
it looks super strong. It's great.
But actually, it's
But
not.
How does your
How
bolt-
your bolt's going to hold?
Exactly.
2 or 3 threads in there, every good pull, because these gears are pulling against from each other. And
And then you start relying on more bolt to actually hold versus
Correct.
plate actually.
correct.
So there's a fine balance there as far as
And, you
getting
know.
the right bolt length to bottom out into
Right.
the bottom of the case and utilize
Correct.
as many threads as you can utilize
Correct.
versus just putting whatever bolt back in it and calling it a day.
100%. So,
So we'll get to that. A lot of times these will feel like they'll feel like you get into a
just
bind.
like that. They feel like in the
pop
band, but no, that's it.
Plastic hammer, rubber hammer,
If it don't come out,
Sometimes just tap on it.
tap from here.
Don't use metal.
Nope, no metal.
No metal.
No hammers.
No metal hammer.
Is either rubber mallet or
Dead lick.
whatever.
Yep.
Rubber.
Dead blow hammer. Great or something like that.
Yes.
They do get kind of jammed in there.
Yes.
sometimes.
Well, that's like I said. The bearing fits in there pretty much perfect. It was designed to fit in there 100%. So. All right. What we did here is we pulled this gear, this one, and the circlip and the washer from here. And Brandon is going to explain you just a little more. What is this?
And this is going to be your gear reduction.
Okay.
So because that is a smaller gear, it's actually going to turn more times to turn the next gear. And that makes it easier for your belt and everything else to operate.
Correct.
That's
So,
how you get your gear reduction.
this gear here is what to 1? You told me.
That's a different setup.
Okay.
But you're going to get about a 10% gear reduction.
10%.
10 to 12% gear reduction right here.
So, yeah.
So
You're going to
that's-
spend
that's
more
where we're
times
gonna come
here
up
than
with
this
our
one.
24% and low. We're going to put a 12% behind it.
Correct.
Yeah, so you get 12%.
So that's your low gear, part of your low gear reduction.
That's
So
your
we
low
go,
gear reduction.
we go from big to small. How many teeth are? Don't know yet. Brandon can tell you that. We're probably going to put it in the description. He's going to tell me
You're
that
going
later.
to what we call a 67 tooth low. So
67 tooth low.
the gear that
See?
it drives is going to be a 67 tooth low gear versus the one that you have now. And when we pull this apart, because it's going to be driving this gear,
Correct.
when we pull that apart, you'll be able to see the difference in the size between this gear, that gear, and
then
the
that gear.
factory setup that you have.
Correct. And he's going to show you how to pull this. He actually want to talk about this a little bit. Let's going to get on Brandon
So-
now and see what he's...
A lot of people, when they start looking at these and they see this gear pack, they're going to say, looks kind of complicated. It's actually fairly simple if you follow this. That's what your shaft looks like. So you're going to have a couple sets of gears. Actually, I got this backwards, but you're going to have one gear on this side of this shaft, or this gear, and then you're going to have 2 on this side. So the way I teach all my guys that work for me and tell everybody to do it is you'll pull this bearing off and you'll lay it down. You'll pull this off, you'll lay it down, and you just lay everything down in order until you get to that gear.
So,
And
so
then
to
put this
explain
side-
this is you're laying down everything on one side, because if the bearing was running forward this way, you want it to keep it going the same way, because if you turn it backwards now and the bearing got wore out a little different, you're going to mess up your transmission or even though gears or whatever.
Well, you typically don't see that in this style of bearing because it's
Right.
the way it fits in the case is already a slit fit anyway.
Right.
So it's kind of loose. You can get more wear on one side than the other based on how it's pushing. But the biggest part of that is knowing where your clip goes
Correct.
and where your washer or your shim is going to go.
Correct.
So you're going to have a clip, a shim, and then back on the back side. And, you know, people get these apart and they
it
don't
makes
know how they go back together.
Mhm.
And that will mess some folks up. So easiest tool to have, go rent this from AutoZone.
Or buy one.
buy
They're
one.
only $10, $12.
Rent it and never take it back. Same sort of thing.
Yep.
But you're going to put that on there. Don't have to have anything crazy to do this. Get
Just
it
a
up to
little
that
drill.
bearing.
That's it.
Boom.
Bearing's off.
It's off. And then, like I was saying, you get your bearing. And you'll notice this one has a different profile on it. That is when you put it in park. That's actually what engages into the side of your case and puts you in park. So you'll see I'll put it down like that.
Correct.
Okay.
In the same way it came out.
same way it came out. And then you pull this clip. And here's another problem people have. When they put these back together, they'll slip a clip, okay? You only want to spread that clip far enough just to get it off. If you're wrenching down on it, which I've seen a lot of people do, especially when they're stuck.
Right.
They will wrench down on it and they'll spread that clip. Once you get it spread a certain distance, it will not close back up.
It never come back like any other metal. It never come back.
So you only want to spread this just far enough to let it slip off.
And you see the clip still straight.
Yes.
That's what you want to see. Now, if it's sideways and you got one side higher than the other one, you don't want to use the clip no more. You actually cost you more money now to buy another clip.
So you put that there, and then you see you got this washer here, shim on top of it,
And the
gear, bearing,
all gear.
okay, same sort of thing, and then you're up next to your gear, nothing left, okay. Then we'll go back to the other side, except we're gonna put them all on this side, just the same way we
Just the same way you take out the other one to
Yeah.
make sure everything goes back on the same
So
place.
when we go back together,
You go back together.
you just
all
start
one
putting that
piece.
stuff back
and all
on
the other
that
piece.
way. So
Correct.
we would end up going, however, we're putting a gear reduction in, so it's
It's gonna go back the same way, but it came out. That's what we're trying to do always. When anything turns or spins, go backwards here.
Yep.
You're gonna try to take it out the same way it came out. And I hold it for you. Not much pressure, guys. This don't need a freaking what is called this, the press or nothing too major. So he's going backwards there. You see that?
same there.
Same snap ring. Don't overdo it. A snap ring has got so much tension can hold.
Just enough to get it off, and that's it.
That's it. I wish they make pliers with locker snap rings, but they don't come out like that. It's a pain.
I got some real good ones for this, but
So backwards again, on top of the bearing.
you'll also see that wear pattern,
Yes, the wear pattern is from this washer
From
there.
that. so you kind of know how. it
So
goes
if
back
you messed
together.
up, always look for the evidence stuff. Wear
And then-
patterns. Look, you got a roller bearing in there.
You get a bearing there, and I pulled the washer off of that. So
Okay, you got a washer on the other side too.
it sits there.
And another snap ring. And again, just enough to get it out. And that comes the tricky part when you do just enough to get it out, because if you spread it right now, he can force it in there and the snap ring will be toast.
You do not want to force these. Sometimes they'll get a little,
There you go. You see? Just barely.
and then your wear ring is going to go towards that washer.
Correct. And you see, if you, for any reason, drop it, you see the wear ring where it goes and what it's touching.
And we're back to another one.
And snap rings and snap rings and snap rings. Transmission was built on snap rings.
Seems like it. And that's off right there.
And it's got a washer.
Washer,
You see the washer there?
engagement, bearing, and boom.
So, you got the two shaft here, side to side. You can already tell a big difference if you come sideways, Danny. You can see a big difference there. How this one is smaller than this one. Big time. Oh yeah.
And then next we're going to replace this gear and this gear because that gear will be driving that gear. So smaller gear here, bigger gear here. Where you got a bigger gear here
and
smaller gear here.
Okay, so that makes it 12% on an overall.
Yes.
And this will make your extra low.
That's going to give you your 12% low. This is going to give you 12% more behind that. Which ideally would add up to 24%, but
correct.
To do the math correctly, you're really talking about if you have 100% here and you take 12% out, you've only got 88% left to take another 12% out. So you get 12% in high, but you're actually only getting 12% of 88 in low.
In low, correct.
To add to what
it needs a math from this shaft to this shaft to this shaft to this shaft to the upper shaft.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, I think Brandon want to show you something here about this gear and that gear.
Yep. So this is going to be the difference. We were talking about the gear reduction, so that's going to be your new setup versus, oops. You can see this gear is bigger and that one smaller. And
bigger.
That one's bigger and this one's smaller.
Correct.
And so that's where you get your gear reduction, is this one's going to have to turn more times to get this to make a full revolution, where this one has to turn less times.
So your torque increase. You just putting more torque out of the hole. Yeah. So it takes care of belts.
Yes.
It takes care of power coming off.
A whole lot easier on belts. Whether you have 5 horsepower or 300 horsepower.
It doesn't matter.
If you want to crawl it,
right,
make it easier on your belt, your clutch, everything engage, because this has to turn more. It just makes it easier for your belt to actually go without burning up, especially bigger tires.
Right, and we all, I mean, you get a racer, any kind. What is the first thing you're going to do? 32s, 35s, you name it. I mean, not many people is going to, some people do it there, run the 29s, but most of the people is going to go 32, 35. So, you know, Polaris has got too long of low gear, because I know I was running over 50 plus. I don't know if it's 60. I have the GPS close to 50 something, and then I quit looking, I think, on low. That's before rev limiter. This is me. Tuner, yes, it takes out the 35 miles per hour block out, but who needs 65, 60 miles per hour on low? That's insane. That's not doable at all.
You just can't crawl with that.
You can crawl because you get on the gas just a little bit, you get there, and you need to just hump it, and the tire's spinning, and you are a mess. But yeah, that's part of the gear reduction, guys, and we're gonna go here, put this back together probably on the new shaft.
Yep.
And
so the new shaft, same as we took it apart, right?
Yep.
So we got everything laid out there, except now we are going to put our low gear
in there
on, right? As opposed to that gear, that one.
Correct.
So put your bearing on there. Good to go.
Washer.
And we're back to make sure you do not spread this
More
any further than needs to be spread to get on. So this is a good thing, because this actual spline portion is actually the widest part of this. So
yes.
Once you can start clearing that spline portion of it,
you just let
her drag,
and you know, push it down till it
down
clicks.
On there.
Make sure it clicks.
You get clear that little spot right there.
There you go. You hear that click?
There she is.
She's in.
Okay. And then put this back on. And then you'll have to press this bearing portion.
Correct.
But for right now, we're going to swap over to the other side.
On the same deal.
On the XP
There you go.
setups where you have to deal with a chain, a lot of times you want to leave that setup off on one side.
Mm-hmm.
That way when you're putting your chain together, putting all this kind of together
Right.
at one time, you can work one side in, let it roll to one side, get your chain on,
Right.
and then put your other gear on.
Right. Like I said, this is a turbo. We got XPs. Brandon here, HD Extreme Offroad.com, correct?
Yes.
Yes. HD Extreme Offroad.com, anything you need. Transmissions, differentials, pretty much. The man on building any powertrain stuff. Or drivetrain, I'm sorry. Powertrain, it will be different. Drivetrain.
Yeah, drivetrain is what we try to focus on. Mainly diff stuff, but we do
We
a lot of
do a
transmission
lot.
stuff.
They do a lot more than you think. I'm impressed just looking and learning every day.
Lock in. This one you're not gonna pressing it against anything. You're just trying to get it in its spot.
Because that
Yep, because you're gonna put a
You're
washer
gonna
on
move.
right behind it.
you move in here, you need the space to move in there. So see how
sure
he
you don't
turned that to
groove.
make sure it's there. And again, snap rings. It's built with snap rings. Click. The clicky.
Yes.
There she goes.
Now with
So
the turbo setup, you can take it straight to the press. You can stick this dude on this side, or this guy on this side, and then you can actually stick that dude in the press just like that.
and press both sides. And
Press
call it
both
a day.
sides at one time. One side's gonna end up going down first,
Right.
and then once it catches up, it'll push
Boop.
the other
Push
side
the other
out.
one. Now on the XP 1000,
The XP 1000 is where you gotta watch out. Typically, what you want to do is you'll leave your low gear off, like unconnected right here. You'll
Right.
get this kind of put together. Then you'll slide that on there, and then you'll run your clip down, and that's just gonna make it easier for your chain.
correct. Because we're
Get your
dealing with a
chain
chain.
set up. Once you get that low gear on, because you'll have the chain running over it, you get the low gear on, and it'll press in between that low gear, and then
Right.
keep the two shafts separate.
Correct.
Then you can put your clip on and then follow everything else up behind it. So
Now, many people don't have a press, and I know how it is because I don't have a press in my house yet. I will get one soon. You can also tap this on a flat surface, no metal, but you can find you a table, something just easy. Easy with a small hammer.
So, problem with bearings when you talk
You-
about
You have to have something.
pressing them and tapping on them and beating on them. Okay. What we believe in, and you're gonna find this out through everything that you deal with when you're dealing with bearings. When you're talking about a bearing that is not actually made for a thrust load, which
Right.
is going to be a side-to-side
Right.
load versus a radial load. This bearing surface, when you tap on them, and you're tapping on this
Oh,
side,
no.
you're
You
beating
tap,
on this
you
side.
tap in the center.
Exactly.
Weight up,
This right here
for example,
is not going to put any pressure
on
on
the
those
bearings.
balls.
Do not throw a flat piece of something like this, for example, and put it there and start to beat it. No, grab the right socket, something that fits not on the hole, but something like a 17 or something, but it fits right in here, but it doesn't go out on the bearing, on the balls in the bearing.
A lot of people I've seen will actually press here.
No,
Okay.
you never do that.
And what you're actually doing is stressing that bearing
Correct.
because you're pushing against the bearing itself.
Yes.
So
next time you do that, your bolts are gonna come apart, and you're gonna have a lot of problems in there. A lot of problems.
So if you do want to tap it, especially to get it from, and I said no metal in here, no metal hammer, but if you do want to tap it, just to get it started,
That's
I mean,
it.
It's
And
in
you
the
see,
center.
right on the center,
Yeah, and that'll keep it from falling off.
falling off, moving and doing stuff.
Some people will, you can. Some of them, you know, tap down. If you're patient with it, just kind of, I go all the way around it just to kind of get it to go down evenly. Okay?
Correct.
But typically, we'll tap them down just to get them started. Put them into press. Put them press on one side. Press all of it together.
One piece.
Yeah.
Ready to roll.
So we'll do that on the press here in a minute.
Yes.
And then this guy, same sort of thing. So we took the big one off. We're gonna put the small one on. We're gonna have to press that dude on. And washer, clip,
yes.
bang. Be good to go.
So we're gonna go to the press in a minute, and we'll see you here in a second. Hold on. Now.
You need to push here solid, and you need to push here solid in the center. You can push across the whole thing, and that's great. You know, so if you just stick a flat plate under it, and granted I've got all kinds of different dies and what have you for different scenarios.
Correct.
But for your average person, you just push it down a little bit further, you'll be good to go.
So the box has got a trick too. Don't just overdo it.
And then you'll see one's going to start pushing down before the other, which in this case is going to be the top. Now the bottom, doesn't matter, keep going with it. One's going to bottom out. When it bottoms out, you're good to go.
Pretty much.
You want to make sure that you're flush, both bearings. And now you have it.
Go press.
You'll see how that flushes out there, and it flushes out there. Guys, you can do whatever. You can, however you need to stick it in there, you know, different setups to, but you want to make sure you push on the gear to actually get the gear down and not put any force anywhere else that you
And make sure the splines are correct.
Yeah, you definitely need to make sure your splines are correct. So it'll go down on the splines and you can't turn it. So in this case scenario,
We can use that.
boom, good to go.
Perfect.
We're gonna push right there. We're just gonna push this gear down. So we get different setups here, like I said.
You just build the wall of China there, and it comes down.
This gear is not a hard press, so you don't have to get it crazy with it. Oh, come on down. And then you're good. And you're gonna have room for your spacer there,
And the washer.
and your clip, and then your bearing. Good to go.
So again, snap ring.
And then bearing. Oops. And then, just like before, you could do a little tap, tap. Just to hold it on there long enough where you can tap it all the way down. Your preference. And you're flush. this portion is done. You now have your gear reduction in low. So you're gonna have your bigger gear here, smaller gear here.
So
High gear is not affected. Reverse is not affected. Nothing there. But now, well, actually, it will be affected once we do it this way.
that way.
Because
Now,
we do have this gear is now lower. So what we have to do is swap this gear out now for that gear to match up to this gear. So everything we've done here is the same thing. Pop this bearing off.
very easy.
And then clip, washer. You got to press this gear off. Just wide enough.
Circ clips. Snap rings.
It's always
They're
good to have
awful.
a good set of
Snap ring pliers.
Yep.
They got some snappers on my two
We have some really good ones for our gifts, but transmission to get the
Yeah.
hole size is kind of tough.
Yes. I got some snappers that were good.
Just enough.
Just enough.
Right.
You hear the grinding when he's coming up because he's not punching it in there full throttle.
You have a shim here. And then you're going to have to press this gear
Out.
off of it. So really you can set this gear on your press. Press the shaft out. Just make sure you hold underneath it. Put this gear back on.
That's it.
Yep. So go to press.
Alright.
Okay. So at the press now, we're going to put this gear, we're going to bottom out against that gear here. Okay. Of course I got this kind of low, but no big deal. So
You got enough extensions.
I have enough extensions, yep. We could move it up, make it a little easier.
You move up and down, it's just too much trouble.
Yep.
It's just-
But the trick is, if you're using a press, there you go.
Now we got the kind of wall.
When you're pressing that shaft out of there, you just want to be able to catch it because you do not want this thing to fall out.
No.
I always
There you
hold
go.
pressure up on the shaft itself.
Perfect. Now we got
Catch
all
all
the-
that.
Yep.
Drop the shaft out. Pull that gear out. This gear, you're going to see that
Bevel part.
bevel part. It's going to
The
drop down
thicker,
on there.
the thicker bevel part goes down.
Make sure it splines up the way it's supposed to. And then just the opposite.
There you go.
Down. Now we'll put our washer on, our snap ring, and then we'll press our bearing back on just like we did all the others. We just put our washer on, putting our snap ring back on here, dragging as we go down so you don't overstretch it.
That's it.
Clipped
Clicky.
in, good to go. You definitely want to make sure, 'cause some of these, sometimes when you put these gear reductions on, they don't quite get down far enough depending on what gear reduction you're going with. You may have to give it just a little bit extra press to get it there.
Or put a flathead and
Yeah.
just walk it around. Don't
And
beat
you'll
the
also
flathead.
see, if you look right down in here, you see that machine portion right there.
Yes.
Some people are scared that they didn't get it down far enough
Right, and just have to press it and break it.
because some of those they have a different shoulder than the rest of them. Don't worry about that. Press it down. As long as your snap ring comes down and presses in, this is going to sit in the spot it needs to sit in. And then we need to put our bearing back on. So back to the press. On the flat, press here.
There you go.
That way I'm covering the whole bearing face. And we're done.
Here's the explaining part.
Now,
let Brandon do it.
what we've done is we've put a gear reduction in low, which is going to be furthermore affected by the gear reduction here. So you get 12ish or so percent gear reduction here. You're going to get another 12% here in low. In high gear, everything stayed the same, but you're still going to get your gear reduction, your 12% gear reduction in high gear.
Correct.
Reverse did not change, but you're still going to get your 12% gear reduction here.
Right. This is your just output 12% on everything.
Correct.
And we adding a 12% on low only. But teeth count, number, small to big.
And we can add all the way up to another 19% on this shaft. So between this shaft and the next gear. So you would change this shaft and this gear to give you another 19%. For guys that are running big tires, big mud tires, what have you.
Yes.
So you can get these things pretty low. You can get them
Yeah.
low enough to run 50s pretty easy. So now it's just a matter of cleaning some stuff up. We're going to change this plate out, so pull these bolts out and do some. I do want to do some adjustment here because
See, that's the reason I bring it to the professional.
you hear a lot of.
Play.
Yeah. There's a way to do this by the book. I don't necessarily do that. I do it a little bit different way, but we get rid of a lot of that
Clunky.
without making the gears too tight. So.
Correct. That's the reason you need a professional doing your transmission. I'm a mechanic. I can take it apart, but that's knowing what's going on here. He does this for a living. He knows what he's doing. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about the pinion
Pinion plate. So earlier we were just discussing about how thick that was. Some people make them thicker, whatever the case. But what you really have to pay attention to when you start getting too thick is the bolt is only going to hold so much. You only have so much thread down in here.
Going in there, correct.
So if you make the plate really thick, like some people do, make it super strong looking, if you will, the plate's great. The bolts can't hold it, the case can't hold it. So it's kind of a fine line you have to walk.
Right.
So in this case scenario, it's kind of a perfect example because this is a factory plate, factory bolts.
200 miles,
And you can
250
see
miles. Look at the bolt on the bottom, guys.
the bolt is warped.
Big time.
It's bent.
The bolt is going left and right and left and right. It's coming. But when he pull it out, you're going to be able to see it if we don't break something before now.
Most of the time when these are like this, when you pull this plate out, the plate is actually
bent.
going to bend
Yeah.
when you pull it out. It's got so much pressure on it. And that's because that gear that's in there, it's a helical cut gear. When you're going forward, that helical cut gear pulls together going forward. So you typically do not break a snorkel gear or bend a bolt or plate going forward because those two gears are pulling together, they get tighter and stronger.
Right. But when you go
When you
reverse,
go reverse, they push apart. And that's where your XP units typically will break.
just throw the snorkel gear.
Yeah, they'll break the snorkel gear, the shaft, the case, whatever it is. That's bent too.
Mm-hmm.
Not as
see it
bad
coming
as
out
that one was.
sideways
That
now.
one's definitely bent.
Big time, yeah.
It's seen a lot worse than that though.
Yep.
You can already see that plate rising up there. That plate should be flat.
Yep.
That means that plate's got a lot of warp in it.
I need an extension for the next one. Oh no, nah, you can't. Nah. Yep, that one is bent too. I see it coming left and right, left and right.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix this plate. You see, it's already,
it's warped.
it's bent. Ain't even got it unbolted yet. It's twisted. But that's how much pressure was on it. And that's why you upgrade that plate. Look at it.
Yep.
Look at it rise up.
It was just a few times, too.
Yep. 200 miles.
You're about to lose it.
1300, yep. Yeah, put it on the right time. I don't know how I did, but
Yeah, we sell a ton of these for the XP units, you know.
yep.
Turbos not so much. Everybody thinks they're stronger, and they are. The snorkel gear is definitely stronger. But
Looking at that plate,
you can see.
yes, I will do. If you have a turbo and you've been beating on it,
If
I
you
will
ever get into
check.
transmission and you don't touch that plate, you're making a huge mistake.
Huge mistake.
So these five, I'm sorry, actually screw into the case itself. This one right here is actually what keeps your lash set.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ah.
you got your little plate here that when it screws in, you gotta have notches on the inside of it.
Okay.
You gotta make sure that when you put all that back together that you clear those notches when you get your lash set correctly, which is the most critical portion of a transmission.
Listen to this.
So-
The lash, it comes with the last bolt.
Which is, remember how I showed you how loose that
Yes.
felt to me? You know,
that. You hear
That
that, guys?
pop, pop,
Tuck,
pop,
tuck, tuck.
Polaris has a book to set it up a certain way. Everybody's got their own little way to do it, I would assume. We set it up a little bit differently. We don't follow their book. We have our own way of doing it.
Hey, I trust.
All these gears, clips, washers, setting all that up, that's super simple. If you don't know what you're doing right here, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You will lose that transmission again.
Yep. It's all about feeling. I learned that
If
in my
you
life.
don't send it to us, or you don't know what you're doing, at least get with somebody that does. That's really what it boils down to.
You put it too tight, you're gonna screw it up. You put it too loose, you're gonna screw it up too.
Yeah,
It's-
because metal gets hot.
Correct.
So if you get it too tight,
it's
when
gonna
it
get
gets hot, it warms up.
Yep.
That clearance you had now has no clearance, and they start pressing against each other. You get it too loose, you have no tooth engagement, and it becomes weak.
Correct.
And
And you start to break stuff inside. Big time. So yep, that bolt's longer. Also,
very much longer.
it's got a flash bar with no threads like the rest of the bolts.
You see, all the bolts are loose now.
Yep.
And you have
Oh yeah, the
One
gap here is almost
side's-
none.
yeah,
You got a
this
gap
side's
here.
flat, that side's
Yep.
bowed up.
Bowed up big time.
Can't tell you how many people I've seen say that these turbo plates do not bend. But
Well,
obviously you can see
If you can
not
see
the
this in
case.
the video there,
I don't know
that's a
how
bend bolt, big time.
hard that be to see, but them bolts are bent pretty good.
They're gonna come out. Woo! Probably this one you're gonna be able to see in the camera. What we're seeing.
I can see it from here.
Wow. It's just bad. It's got a curve that way, big time. Unreal.
You was on your way to buying a transmission.
Yep, looks like it. Wow.
So get all them bolts out like you did. This right here should
Pops.
pull out.
Pops out right off.
From time to time they are a little tough to get out, so once again, don't use a metal hammer.
Nope, never.
Just,
Boop.
just kind of tap
Bump
it.
it.
Sometimes you gotta bump it and get it to, it'll work out.
Yep.
Just be patient with it, don't tear it up. And then you're good to go. And then that's your snorkel setup.
Pretty cool.
Now to replace this plate, we're going to go through the same sort of process here that we did all this other stuff. Pull this gear, snap ring, washer, pop this off.
Put the new
That'll
one on.
that'll slide off. Then we'll put the new one on.
Oh yeah, look at the new one, guys.
We'll show you the comparison.
It is a big difference there. No, extremely thick, thicker, and better materials.
Yep.
That should keep my snorkel gear there, pinion gear straight.
And the other thing you got to keep in mind is you have X amount of material here. You have X amount of material here, thicker, right?
Mhm.
So when you talk about thread depth and how much
Right.
depth you have here, what we've done with our plate is we made it basically the next size up for the biggest size, the next size bolt up to match the thread depth.
The same. This is you're still biting the same of the bolt from this one to that one, but it's gonna be one size bigger bolt.
Yes, one size longer bolt, but you still get all your thread engagement here,
Mhm.
and you still have the thicker plate here.
Yes, and full
So
seat
it
and everything.
supports the bolt. It's going to support all this. This setup is actually stronger than what the case will actually handle. So if you're breaking this, you're probably going to have a case problem.
Yep. Sounds like it.
That's what we try to get to. So it's a fine line of, we can make it super thick and your bolts will fail, or we're going to get the plate to be as strong as it could possibly be, with the bolt setup it could possibly be,
Correct.
versus the case being as strong as it could
Correct.
possibly
So you make everything strong.
Exactly.
The plate and the case, the bolts long enough to fit in there, and everything.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oops. That's a lot lower.
There she is. Slide that out. You can leave that there so you can check that out.
Correct. Now, come on with me, Danny. Thickness. Big difference in thickness here. Big difference, guys. Yep. We're gonna see how this goes in. The opposite way it came out.
So you just take that. You're gonna put it back on there. You're gonna put your gear back on there. Make sure you hit your splines.
Yep. You tighten there.
Flip this guy over. And now you're gonna press. Pretty easy to press on this dude. You can press it right there. Gets that guy out.
That guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Longer. Yes, sir. I was trying to make another channel wall. Ah,
Sit down. You have enough room for your washer and your clip.
there you go. So, what's up? We're here building the transmission. Gears ready. everything ready to go back. We even got the new plate, pinion plate, but we're running troubles here. As you can see, beat up in there. The adjuster from your pinion, it probably is terrible. We're gonna think back in the day, OFFROAD, I think it was the first ride I did, that side by side did have under 20 miles. I heard a loud pop, never knew what it was. And after that, every time I put it on low gear and I give it a little throttle, it was pop and pop and pop. And most than likely what he explained me, Brandon, is threads inside of here, and that's your adjuster for the lash on the ring gear. No, not ring gear, I'm talking about the pinion gear. And yep, probably jump a tooth or something, and pretty much this case is trash now. We're gonna need to get a new case. And all that's gonna work with Brandon in the next few days, but we're gonna finish this video. And yep, pretty much that's it for tonight. We got the gear reduction ready, everything going pretty straight back together. Brandon helped a lot, and thanks so much for Brandon to help me on all this build, the transmission, and he's gonna find me a case to go in it, and we go from there, and we'll see what happens. Hey, see you soon.